Hi everyone, welcome back to Demand Decoded. I'm Dan Stilgo, Marketing Manager at Blend, and I'm all alone today. I have no friends with me here, and I'm bringing you a solo episode. We haven't done many of these, but I've done a few in the past, and they're always good fun, and hopefully bring you some great insight. And today's episode is all about LinkedIn ads, and in particular, the biggest mistakes that I see again and again and again repeated in all of the ad accounts that we have access to, and the people in communities that I talk to and see their struggles and frustrations and failings really when it comes to LinkedIn ads. At Blend ourselves, we actually saw that last year LinkedIn ads was one of our best performing channels for close one revenue. So we've been investing in it, experimenting in it, and really figuring out the right formula for effective LinkedIn ads. And along that journey, we've also figured out what really doesn't work. And at the same time, investing and experimenting with our own ads, we work with dozens of businesses on their demand generation strategies. And often a large part of this strategy includes LinkedIn ads to create demand and capture demand with retargeting ads. So all of this has given me really great insight into what works when it comes to LinkedIn ads and fundamentally what doesn't work. And today we'll be diving into some of the biggest mistakes that I see. This podcast is brought to you by Blend. We're a B2B website and demand generation agency. We work with ambitious businesses just like yours to create and execute effective demand generation strategies that drive pipeline for your business. We also recognize that your website is the most important asset you have in marketing. So we specialize in building scalable websites on HubSpot that convert the demand that you've created. If you want to find out more about our services and see real results that we've generated for businesses, visit blendb2b.com. So the first mistake that I see is the strategy, fundamentally, or lack of, which is so often present. A lot of businesses will just start investing in LinkedIn ads and paid media of any type, really, without a fundamental strategy behind it. It might be that LinkedIn ads or whatever channel we're going after is a popular channel at the time. It's a widely recommended thing that businesses do, but it's not specific to your individual market and audience and use case. Firstly, I would start off by looking at, do you know who your ICP is? Do you actually understand who you are trying to sell to and who your audience is and who you're trying to influence through these LinkedIn ads and through your marketing? It's interesting when it comes to ICP because every business will have an ideal customer that they want to sell to. It might be a Fortune 500 company. It might be an enterprise company. You might get some businesses that are more realistic and say, no, we're in the SME market. When it comes to LinkedIn ads, I think it's important to be really honest and target your actual buyers versus your ideal customer profile in 12 or 24 months. At the end of the day, what you're doing here is you're paying to distribute content to a very specific audience, and to get the best return on that budget that you're distributing, you need to be pretty sure that the people that you're targeting will be able to buy from you effectively. And the best way of doing that is by proving to yourself that those people, those particular cohorts of people that match the same kind of demographics and firmographics are the people that you're already selling to, and that you can repeat that process. If you haven't yet sold into huge enterprise companies or Fortune 500s, then it's unlikely that you're going to be able to have that effect through a LinkedIn ad strategy. And you need to just focus on what works right now and prove out that you can sell to those ideal customers of yours in other ways before you start investing huge amounts of budget into LinkedIn ads there. It might be that you have a test pot for it, but I would say that the core fundamentals of your campaign need to focus on buyers that are already a great fit for your company. When you've figured out who your ICP is, it's important to know if they're actually on LinkedIn. At the end of the day, when it comes to marketing, we need to focus on distributing content and engaging our audience in the right channels that they're already using. If your audience doesn't use LinkedIn, there is absolutely no point in having LinkedIn ads running. You might as well just turn this episode off right now and go and listen to something else, because genuinely, if your audience aren't there, there is just really no point in distributing content there and trying to have an influence over them on that channel. So when it comes to understanding where your audience are and if they're using LinkedIn, it comes back to market research at the end of the day. So marketers can do this themselves by one-to-one customer interviews, other forms of customer research, like using platforms like Winter and GWI, getting information from sales and customer success to understand things that are mentioned on calls. All of this can be wrapped up in buyer research, really, and give you a good understanding of where buyers are spending their time, where they're consuming content, and the types of content they're consuming too. That will give you a really great idea if they're even using LinkedIn in the first place and if it's a viable channel for your strategy. The next thing to establish before you even start running or thinking about LinkedIn ads is, do you understand what your core message is to the market? Have you outlined your core product market fit? Has it been sold into the market? Like, what's the reaction been like? Is it effective? Do you understand the core benefits of your product? Do the market resonate with those core benefits? Has this been proven out before you even take it to LinkedIn ads in the first place? So make sure that you know what your message is, you know what those core benefits are, and that they're already starting to take place and you're seeing success from them in other ways. It might be sales conversations and feedback that you're getting there. It might be on your website. Going on to the website, it's important to make sure that the message you're distributing on LinkedIn ads is also reflected in your website and that the two align perfectly. If your LinkedIn ads are branded in a particular way, saying a message that's completely different from your website, is creating a really disjointed feel. Because if you think about it, most of the effort you put into LinkedIn ads is attempting to drive people back to your website. And if those two things aren't connected and don't have a joined up feel and joined up message, and it's very coherent for the buyer to see or click on a LinkedIn ad and then have that message mirrored on your website, it's going to be a really disconnecting experience, and they're not going to see the full value and coherent message from your brand. So let's say your audience are using LinkedIn, you've got a really great message that you've tested out in the market already, then you need to figure out where to start with the LinkedIn ads, because there are many, many different ways that you can create audiences in LinkedIn ads, but the two main buckets you're going to have are cold touch and retargeting audiences. So cold touch is an audience that may or may not have been on your website. You're not too sure necessarily unless you add some retargeting exclusions, but they're essentially your ideal audience that you start to build up through, job titles, functions, list uploads, all of those kind of things. You're unsure if they're aware of your brand, basically. Retargeting, on the other hand, are people that have visited your website, they visited your company page, they've engaged with you in other ways. They are aware of your brand. They may have consumed content in the past, and it's important to know where to start here. If you already have a good amount of website traffic, I would probably say over 1,000 visits a month, maybe a bit more, then retargeting is the number one place to start when it comes to LinkedIn ads. You've already started driving really good, hopefully qualified traffic to your website, and retargeting is just going to allow you to accelerate and improve the conversion rate of that traffic into high intent leads on your website. When you think about it, all you're doing with retargeting is making sure person X who's been on your website is now seeing message Y on LinkedIn when they use the LinkedIn platform. So it's really just a way of making sure that your message and any further messages that you want to deliver to these qualified buyers who have been on your website is distributed on LinkedIn too, and making sure that they see the main pain points that you want them to see through your ads. Then, once you've started to establish your retargeting campaign, if you already have a good level of traffic already, that's when you can move into cold touch, because you don't have as much traffic as you'd like from the website already. So you need to start generating some more of that and paying in terms of media to get that attention, to create that demand and to capture it. onto your website. So it's important to know where to start there, and I would always default to retargeting if I could. Many of the businesses that we work with have already got some kind of established traffic, at least anyway. It might be coming from organic search or paid Google ads, events, whatever it may be. They're creating and capturing demand in some ways already that we can then really hone in on and improve the conversion rate of that through retargeting. Next, you've got to consider the content types that you actually want to distribute into the feed as well. And hopefully you'll be able to gather from market research and insights that you do yourselves what kind of content resonates best with your audience. It might be that they want to consume video content and short form video. Okay, well, let's create some short form video and distribute that using ads. It might be that they want to, download documents or whatever. Probably not, because nobody wants to do that. But if they do, that's probably a good content type to distribute too. I would say most businesses can default to single image ads, because really all you're doing there is just distributing one core message in a limited frame. Basically, you've only got 1200 pixels to do that in, but it works for almost all businesses. So default to single image ads and look to expand upon that based on what you find out about your audience. Then what's the actual objective of this campaign? I'm just going to say, if your objective with LinkedIn ads is to capture leads using lead gen forms, don't bother. Just don't bother. And when I say that, I'm considering the conversion rate into pipeline and revenue of those things. Sure, I could run ads right now on Blend's account that capture leads for, 50 to £100 and give them to our sales team to reach out to and try and nurture them to convert them into an MQL and then an opportunity essentially with sales. But I know for a fact, time and time again, data has proven that those kind of leads that you get from these campaigns do not convert into customers. If they do convert into customers, it's about 1 to 2% of those. Often it's zero. So running any kind of direct lead gen campaign on LinkedIn is a total waste of budget and time, because those leads that you're paying through the roof for simply do not convert into pipeline and revenue. So all you're doing is wasting your own time in setting up those ads and trying to nurture them. You're wasting sales time by forcing them and encouraging them to reach out to these leads who are never going to buy from you and who were just purely consuming content on the platform. And now all of a sudden you're trying to position them into, a sales funnel that they're just simply not ready for. They were just trying to consume content and, they will not convert. So you're wasting all of that time. You're basically ensuring that sales won't hit their target using these leads. So the best thing to do is to distribute that content freely using single image ads, using video content, or just linking back to a piece of content on your website that has all of that information in, and opening up to as wider audience as you can as possible. The next mistake I see time and time again is trying to take the funnel approach to marketing and bring it into LinkedIn ads. So saying, okay, what we're going to do is stage one, we're going to distribute this kind of content to engage our buyer in brand awareness, so they're aware of our brand. The next layer down from that, we're going to distribute some content to make them consider our solution. The next layer down, okay, then we might start to retarget to get some decision-making content out there. That simply just does not work fundamentally, and especially when it comes to LinkedIn ads. You have no idea where your buyer is on their journey. So just by saying, okay, this piece here with a case study, or this ad here with a case study or a testimonial from our contact, should only be relevant to our retargeting audience because they're aware of us. You have no idea where your buyer is on their journey. The fact is that a small cohort of the audience that you target in cold campaigns are probably in market to buy. So distributing ads that talk about your product, that talk about case studies and results that you get, is hugely beneficial to attract those buyers more immediately to your business whilst you create demand for the rest of the audience that aren't yet in market to buy. And you just don't know how much research, how much evaluation, and how much of the buying process and knowledge that your buyers have about your brand and about the product or service that you're selling. So my thesis when it comes to LinkedIn ads and where to distribute content is give everything to everybody, because you have no idea where they are in their buyer journey. So don't try and pigeonhole them into a particular funnel when you just don't know where they're at and what's going to be relevant and valuable to them. Okay, cool. So that's the strategy out the way. You're getting a full download here, really, of my entire brain when it comes to LinkedIn ads. So if you do like this episode, definitely drop us a follow if you haven't already. So yeah, once you've got the strategy out the way and you kind of understand your audience, like they're using LinkedIn ads, you've got the message down, you've got your content types down, you understand the approach to take when it comes to LinkedIn ads. Now we get into the tactical stuff when it comes into actual campaign creation. And I'll try and fly through this a little bit more because it's in the weeds of things. It's not strategic thinking outside of the campaign, but it's actually how do you maximize what you're doing inside of LinkedIn ads, which I think is, super important as well to get the best ROI from this channel. So first thing is audience creation. And one thing that gets me time and time again when I look at this is humongous audiences being created inside of LinkedIn ads. And it's because LinkedIn themselves within the platform will tell you that you need an audience size minimum of 50K basically to make it worthwhile. And it's totally just not true. All it does is force businesses to spend more and more money to get a higher and higher frequency to actually engage buyers in the feed. When it comes to audience size, your size audience should be your size. If that's 5,000, that's totally fine. If it's 150,000, that's totally fine too. But the thing to remember when it comes to audience is that you need to match up your audience size with budget to hit a target frequency. So what we're trying to do with LinkedIn ads, cold campaigns, for example, is touch the audience in the feed and distribute your ad to them a certain number of times. So around 3 to 5 more is better, but that's the minimum that I would go for over a 30-day frequency. So that means that audience is seeing your ad or your ad variants in the feed a minimum of 3 to 5 times. Now, if I have an audience size of 250,000 but a daily budget of $10, I am never ever going to reach a target frequency of 3 to 5 because only a small portion of that audience will actually see my ad. And just seeing your ad once isn't enough to ensure that your message and the variance of that message and the different benefits that you're trying to communicate in your ads are resonating. So it's important to pair audience size with budget to hit that target frequency. Don't be afraid to have a really small audience size and make sure it's super refined. When I'm talking about that as well, audience expansion is just the first thing to turn off when you create a campaign. You don't want LinkedIn being able to spend more of your budget on an audience that isn't part of your defined ICP that you actually want to distribute this ad to. You need to be really specific here because ultimately we're talking about budget and spending money to communicate a message to a very particular audience, and you want to make sure that particular audience stays particular and stays refined to your company, and don't branch off too far and start distributing and paying to distribute a message to an audience that simply can't buy from you or can never influence a buy from you. Next thing is be pretty heavy on excludes. Probably, my last point will be to make sure that you're refining over time and looking at demographics to exclude, but also be pretty heavy on exclusions early on. So exclude competitors, your own company, and don't overlook company lists as well. That includes inclusions and exclusions. You might find that creating a company list on something like Cognism or Apollo or Zoom Info and being able to really refine your list on there in terms of target revenue and company size and location is a bit more specific than what you can do on LinkedIn itself. And that goes for excludes as well. So don't overlook the use of those, particularly if you have a target list of accounts that you actually want to, distribute content to in the feed. It's important to, acknowledge that company lists are there to be used and can be effective as well. Quick note on placement: turn off LinkedIn Audience Network. You don't want to be distributing ads to all of these random websites that your buyers aren't using. If you're paying for LinkedIn ads, it's because you want to distribute LinkedIn ads on LinkedIn and not on random third-party websites that they just have a display network on of ads. So yeah, make sure that you're being very specific about where you want these ads to show and turn off that bad boy. LinkedIn Audience Network should be off. Then when we get into budget and bidding and the money side of things, the familiar thing that I see here again is that budget is too low to hit a target frequency. So like I just said, if you have a audience size of 250,000 and a budget of $10 a day, you're not going to be able to hit a frequency above 1, probably above 0.5. So you need to make sure that if your audience truly needs to be that size, then you need a bigger budget in order to actually effectively use ads to distribute your message more than once, ideally between 3 and 5 times and more if possible, and really have your message resonate with somebody, because it's not going to happen if they just see your ad once. So lower the audience if you can and get really specific with your ads and with your message to a refined audience size, or see how you can increase budget to basically get a better frequency level. The next point is relying on maximum delivery, and I feel like this probably isn't a really well-known thing, as most people who set up LinkedIn ads and those that I see that we haven't had an influence on yet just rely on maximum delivery. But if you actually take a step back and think about what's happening there, LinkedIn ads will be trying to spend as much money as possible by using maximum delivery. So we've found in every single case that we've used manual bidding instead of maximum delivery, that we've had better CTRs, more impressions, more clicks. Every single metric has gone up since using manual bidding. So the best way to start here is just work back from the bottom of the range that LinkedIn ad recommend, have that as your manual bid to start with, and work your way up. What you're trying to do there is basically say, let's get as many clicks as possible for the cheapest amount possible. And then once we've saturated that proportion of the market and are starting to see diminishing returns in terms of clicks and click-through rate, let's work our budget back up to target more high-end, well, in terms of what LinkedIn are proposing as like high-end clicks. So we're having to pay more to get these people to click. So see what you can get for as little as possible to start with, and then work your way up to those higher bidding clicks, essentially. So it's just a good way of ensuring you're not burning your budget too fast and too quickly. So yeah, use that kind of scale up method when it comes to bidding. So the next point is measurement. What a surprise. We're talking about measurement on this podcast again, but I've kind of gone through the flow of a LinkedIn campaign setup here, and measurement and conversion tracking is the next thing on the list. Measurement. When it comes to LinkedIn ads, it is just a really big problem. And there is often no measurement at all in place to measure the effectiveness of these campaigns. So conversion tracking on LinkedIn has to be set up, and that counts for each touch and last touch to actually figure out which ads are having the most impact on that final conversion and which ads are kind of having an influence on conversions but throughout the entire journey. So yeah, conversion tracking needs to be set up. The easiest way to do this is just to have a thank you page after your high intent form to measure if your LinkedIn ads are having the desired impact of converting people on your high intent forms on your website. So Add the pixel to your website, make sure that you have the legalities in place to do that. Add the pixel to your website, create the thank you page, set up conversion tracking in LinkedIn to make sure you can then see people that have viewed your ads and then gone on to convert through LinkedIn conversion tracking, and people that have clicked your ads and then gone on to convert as well. It's really interesting the differences you'll see in LinkedIn conversion tracking metrics and like software attribution, for example. You'll often see that people will simply view your ad and then navigate to your website in a really particular and weird way that doesn't align with software attribution. So you'll see that direct traffic brought in a particular person, but conversion tracking might, count them as a conversion because they saw your ad 25 days ago and then have decided to just type in your domain name or go to organic search and search for your brand name in there and then convert through that method. So software attribution won't tell you that it's paid social, sorry. The other thing to include is self-reported attribution. Again, there are discrepancies when it comes to attribution, when it comes to conversion tracking even. It might not measure, depending on your settings, how somebody actually heard about you being LinkedIn ads. Self-reported attribution has no date stamp. It is reliant on what the buyer says and how they tell you they heard about you. And if that was a LinkedIn ad 6 months ago, your conversion tracking might not track that. The cookies on your website will have expired. Self-reported attribution has no expiry date apart from the person's memory. So it is the most important thing that you can have on your high intent website conversion form, just because the insights that you get from that will truly tell you if LinkedIn ads are actually having an impact on bringing buyers to your website and ensuring they convert. The next thing is, again, quite a tactical thing that's really, really easy to miss in the ad creation process, and this is ad rotation. So in the ad screen on LinkedIn where you've got all your creative, there's a little settings cog in the top bar, and this allows you to rotate ads in different ways. So you can either optimize for performance or rotate ads evenly, and it's important to know when to use these at the right time. So for cold ads, I would typically default to optimize for performance, because what you're trying to do here is making sure that the best ad in all of your ad creatives is being served to your audience the most. If your target frequency is really high, I would probably then default back to rotate ads evenly, so a single ad isn't really getting fatigued in the feed too much, and that your audience is seeing different messages from you. But if your frequency is quite low, just having that one top performing ad that's really proven itself to get the best click-through rate, to get the best conversions, is probably the way to go. But for retargeting, I typically default back to rotate ads evenly, because frequencies will typically be a lot higher, and you want to make sure that you're distributing varied messages to the market and not just having one ad shown again and again and again, which start to have a diminishing return and actually a negative impact, because people start to get fed up of seeing that same message and that same thing in their feed. So once you've got those settings down, the next thing to actually look at is the ad creative. And of course, a lot of the success of the campaign is down to the ad creative and how that combines with the audience to distribute the right message in the right way creatively to the right people. First thing, I mean, we've kind of spoken about this already, but try not to limit yourself just to image ads if you can see that your audience will engage with other formats. But that is kind of what I'm focusing on here, just because it is the default ad format that works for most people and is used by most businesses. So yeah, all I'd say is single image ads are great, of course, and will work in almost all cases, but explore other options as well. So my main gripe that I have with LinkedIn ad creative is when ads are too creative and have no meaning at all, where you've tried to create something beyond comprehension. So you've taken a message that would likely resonate with your market, but decided it's too simple. and it's too granular, and that you need something really bold and really creative to spark the minds of people and really make them think and, discover your brand in a different way. That's actually a really big mistake when it comes to LinkedIn ads, because if your audience needs to stop for multiple seconds and try and figure out what you're trying to say, they've already scrolled past. They have already gone. Your audience needs to understand your message immediately. It needs to resonate with them straight away, because if not, they will scroll past and your message will be lost in the void. So when it comes to LinkedIn ad creative, be specific, be creative within that as well, and augment basic old tired ideas with thoughtful new ones. That's a great thing to do. Don't just try and take something old and use it on LinkedIn ads too. You need to be creative in there, but be specific and be intentional about what you're saying to make sure that your audience will understand what you're saying immediately, that they don't have to stop, think, and figure out what you're trying to say. It kind of comes back to homepage and website messaging, which I'm sure we've spoken about on this podcast. If not, on Websites Decoded, it's talked about quite a lot, our other podcasts, where a buyer needs to land on your website and it needs to pass the blink test. So you have, can't remember what the number of seconds is, it's not many, to basically communicate what it is you do and who it is for in the shortest space of time possible. So before somebody blinks, basically, they need to understand what that message is and if it's relevant to them. The same thing applies with LinkedIn ads. Be specific. Make sure that your audience knows that this thing needs to resonate with them and it's for them. This benefit is for their business and it's for them and it will help them. They need to understand that straight away. So, remove the abstractness and the kind of overly creative messaging that kind of devoids of any meaning at all, and just get back to being specific and ensure that your audience can take that message in immediately, and you'll see better results from it ultimately, because your audience will just be able to resonate with your ad straight away. Some other just tips for LinkedIn ad creative is getting a bit more authentic with things. You'll have seen that thought leader ads are outperforming any business related ads by quite a few percent in terms of click-through rate, and that's no surprise, because people trust people and they look more authentic because they look like more authentic posts. But when it comes to what you can actually do with your business account ads, try out some more authentic style creative. So screenshotting reviews that you get from the actual review platform itself is really useful. Screenshot what people are saying about your business in Slack communities, on LinkedIn itself, on Twitter, wherever it may be, making sure that the people in the feed and your audience that you're distributing these ads to understand that real people are saying real things about your business, and you're not just making this up and creating a testimonial that looks really good and satisfies the creativeness of the testimonial and it working with your brand. They will underperform in most cases compared to a authentic screenshot just literally grabbed from the platform about the customer saying something positive about you, because it's more trustworthy, because the audience can tell that you can't fake that. And you can't be extra creative about how you word or display that review. That has come straight from the customer's mouth and is trustworthy. Okay, so my last point, I think, and unless I decide to include something else here at the end, is setting and forgetting. So you've done all that work up to this point to nail down your audience and your creative and get your campaigns into a really, really good place. Then, what do we see? Businesses clicking the publish button and leaving these things on for 3, 6, 9, in some cases 12 months, and just burning through budget and not understanding how effective your campaign has been. Of course, LinkedIn ads and any kind of paid media take time to prove effectiveness, but you can optimize campaigns immediately, sometimes at least a week or two into the campaign of being live. You should be looking in demographics, making sure that there aren't any particular companies or regions that are getting huge amounts of impression share and skewing your budget. So, you don't have the US majorly outperforming in terms of impressions, whereas your European market is trailing behind and not seeing your ads as many times. That's a huge signal to be like, okay, maybe we need to either remove the US if it's not as relevant to us, or split these two campaigns out so we have a dedicated US budget and a dedicated EU budget to make sure that your audience is getting a fair distribution of your ads and that you can optimize for different regions and different industries in some cases, to make sure that your ads are being seen by the right people in the right frequencies too. As well as that, you can quite quickly see, depending on your audience and number of impressions and clicks, which ad creatives are underperforming and which are overperforming. Those ones that are underperforming, you can cut those off. LinkedIn ads is all about iteration and testing and new ideas and new messaging being brought in different creative ways to the feed. So if you see that an ad is underperforming, after a good amount of data in terms of click-through rate and like impressions and clicks that you have from other ads as well, and you've got a few that are just trailing way behind, even if you're really hung up on the creative of these ads, I've had it, where I've had an idea for a few ads and I've thought these will be fantastic in the feed. Our audience will resonate with these straight away. They'll probably be our top performing ads, and they absolutely tank. They flop compared to the ad that I probably wasn't too sure about, but we included it anyway to test. So you have to be brutally honest with yourself sometimes and say, even though we really liked that idea and internally we thought it would resonate with our market, it simply doesn't. Turn it off, move on, start again, iterate and test, and just keep on testing out different ad creatives to find what works for your business. At the same time, you don't need to turn off all of your best performing ads. They can be running forever, for years, if they're working effectively. This isn't a cycle that you need to go through necessarily. It's not, okay, in 3 months, we refresh all of our ads. In 6 months, we refresh all of our ads. No, it's iteration. It's building, and it's creating building blocks within your ads to basically say, let's add a couple here on this particular benefit. Let's add one here because we've seen that this kind of format and this kind of structure within the creative itself and this composition is working really well. So it's just building and learning on the data that you have here and not just setting something and completely forgetting it. Looking at what works and doing more of that as well. Can you communicate that message in a different creative way? Because if that's the thing that's resonating, then you want to make sure that that is being distributed in more than one way as well, and seeing just how you can bring that message to the market basically through your ads. And I suppose the last thing I will say when it comes to LinkedIn ads is that reporting and ROI is important here. Obviously, it's really hard when it comes to marketing and brand building activity to prove ROI on a particular campaign. But with the use of things like self-reported attribution, looking at incrementality testing and lift, you can get to an ROI metric here, and you can say, through self-reported attribution at least, we've had this many inquiries through our website, or this many high intent leads through our website. This many have converted into pipeline. This is the amount. So then you can get your ROI amount on, return on ad spend when it comes to pipeline. And then you can do the same on closed won too. So it is possible, and it is really important because eventually someone's going to ask you, there's a line item here in LinkedIn ads, we're spending this amount, what return are we getting from that? And you need to be able to say, this is it, or at least have some way of communicating, we're telling a narrative to the market and we're seeing these early signals, but they haven't yet reached pipeline and closed won revenue. And you've got to create that story, and you need to be able to prove the impact, even if it's, using those early indicators of, this is the kind of engagement, like really early indicators in this case, this is the kind of engagement that we're getting on our LinkedIn ads. Like, these are the kind of people that we want to sell to, and they're liking and engaging with our ads in the feed. That's awesome. And then from that, are we getting more traffic to our website from these ads? good sign again. Then high intent leads. Are we getting high intent leads from our LinkedIn ads? And then it comes down to your sales cycle. If you've got a long sales cycle, it might take a long time to realize those high intent leads in terms of pipeline close one revenue. So it's important to take that into consideration, but get back to an ROI metric if you can, because it's really important in terms of justifying why you're spending on this platform and continuing to ramp up the investment if it's working for you as well. Okay, cool. So let's wrap it up there. Hopefully that episode was helpful for you. I know it was a bit tactical at times, but hopefully gave you a good strategic overview as well of what's really working when it comes to LinkedIn ads and where the improvements lie. And yeah, we're just seeing so many mistakes when it comes to huge amounts of spend on LinkedIn ads, and I think it's really important to bring those to people and make sure that you can all optimize your campaigns as efficiently as possible and get the best return from your investment ultimately. So cool, let's wrap it up there. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Demand Decoded, and I'll see you next time. Bye everyone.